Hello everyone, welcome to this amazing session. And so my name is Sarthak and I work as an SE2 and Android developer in Dunzo and also part of Recro. Recro, which is a developer focused organization where we are trying to connect developers' aspirations to the right opportunity by working with a lot of high growth startups like Dunzo, Swiggy, Kyofit, Udaan, and a lot more similar startups. So today we will be covering best practices of React Native for Android and iOS. I think a lot of uh, developers and a lot of organizations have started focusing on React Native because I think it's a beautiful framework where using a single code base you can write both the apps, and it's very you can say efficient for companies as well as developers to write code. So there are certain best practices that needs to go in because you are managing two platforms, which is the iOS and the Android. So yeah, so I'll introduce the speaker. So today we have Muskan Singh, who is an SD3 in the Apps Core team at Flipkart and comes with 5+ years of experience in building highly scalable and crisp apps. And he also develops websites using React Native and React, and he's known for his deep knowledge of mobile systems, and he has an even deeper curiosity in different food cuisines. So if you have any questions regarding that, you can ask him that also. So now I'll pass the mic to Muskan, and we can start the session.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, Sarthak. Lovely to be here and be able to share my ideas with this large group. Um, Before I begin, I would like to, address a few facts about what this talk is going to be, who does it address to, and what is the takeaway at the end of this session, right? So, I'm assuming that a lot of people in the group already know about React Native, and if they don't know, like they're the beginners of the platform, there's something for them too. Like there are some people who might know React Native a little more. What we'll try to do is we'll try to cover the basics of React Native on Android and iOS, as well as I'll try to, in the end, try to dig a little deeper into the question which is on the screen right now. Is React Native truly cross-platform? Which means we'll try to dig deeper into whether it can work on Android, iOS, as well as web, right? So we'll try to cover all three platforms. And I believe that at the end of the session, you would have something to take away, like all of you in the meet today, something to take away from the session. And I believe I will have something to take away as well in terms of questions or suggestions on how we can do all of these things better. Right. So jumping straight to the topic out here at hand, is React Native truly cross-platform? And when I say truly, I want to think of all three platforms at once: Android, iOS, and web. Right. So we know that React Native has out of the box support for Android and iOS. That is what Facebook comes out of the box with. Facebook delivers React Native, which has support for Android and iOS. Does it work for web too? And why I asked this question in the first place is because if you think of Android and iOS and why React Native sort of worked, is because they both sort of look alike, right? Their mobile systems, they sort of look alike, except a few nuances here and there in terms of gestures and navigations. They end up looking the same, especially for sites like e-commerce sites or payment sites or things like that, which are pretty static in nature. A couple of images and text here and there and buttons here and there would give you the feel of the entire app, right? So web, when you think of mobile websites, when you think of PWAs, right? All of those also look very similar, except that they just run in a browser, right? So why can't a code that run on Android and iOS also run on web, right? And there have been conversations about how web is also a major player in the market, right? How Android and iOS do take away a major share of uh, you know the people who come and visit platforms, but web is an ever increasing number because it's one of them is that you are universally accessible through a URL or something, and the other is definitely that the people who are coming up to the internet for the first time from tier 2 or tier 3 cities, they usually come through web as a platform. So you would want that same feature to exist over there when the view sort of looks the same. So as a developer, why not think of, when you think of cross-platform, why not think of all three platforms at once? And when you think of React Native, why not think of all three platforms at once? And the other argument that I want to make in this regard is that React Native comprises of writing React code, right? A major chunk of it. So when you're writing React, when you're writing JavaScript, right? Why not run it in the browser, which is all the more capable of running JavaScript, right? So all those arguments make me think: is React Native truly cross-platform if it does not run on web and it runs only on Android and iOS? So I'm hoping everybody understood the question, understood the motive behind the talk today, the session today. That I would expect all of us to brainstorm and think together how React Native can truly be cross-platform and run on all three platforms at once. So before jumping deep into the session, I would like to introduce myself, take a moment and, hi, my name is Maskeen. I work in the Flipkart Apps Core team as an SD3, and you can reach out to me on the handle on Twitter. And the name spelling is a little offbeat. You can use MASKEEN to get you a sense. I have been called Mukesh, Muskain, Muskegon, Musking, all sorts of names. If you have trouble, I respond to hey, oye, and all of those verbal abuses that go around in Northern India. Right? So that's a little bit about me. What we will also think about today is why do we do React Native in the first place, right? So React Native is not the first platform that has come out when that makes you think about cross-platform as a thing, right? Or running on multiple platforms at the single time, using the same code running on different platforms. But there have been other things like Cordova, Ionic, web views have existed for a long time. The thing that separates React Native from all these platforms is the native experience, right? So you get a native, even though you write your business logic, your view logic in React, you end up getting a native experience. So native developers would often argue that all of these frameworks, Cordova, Ionic, or things like web views would take away the experience. You would be opening things in a web view, or you would be taking away the native feel of the app, not being able to exercise all the native capabilities. That takes away all the experience. So React Native keeps that intact. The other thing that comes up is obviously code reusability. React Native is an abstraction over Android and iOS, so you end up using the same piece of code for both the platforms. And the other thing which native developers often talk about, which is a pain, right? Them having to push their apps, not so frequently as JS developers, because you have a release cycle, because the Play Stores and app stores comes into play. There is a review cycle that comes, which takes out a couple of days here and there, right? So, and the users, how do you make sure that the users are on the latest app at all times? People don't necessarily update their apps unless they're on very killer Wi-Fi's, and you would often have people supporting legacy Android versions, iOS versions, just because there's some fraction of people out there on that app, right? So OTA updates would make sure that, because it's an end of the day, it's JavaScript bundle, it all gets shipped to the end user, and the user is always at the latest feature at all times. So over-the-air updates would help you do that, right? The other thing which is pretty great about React Native is the community that has come around the whole scenario in the past 3 or 4 years. React Native is the second most starred GitHub repository, and you possibly can think of anything that you can build on Android and iOS. There is a React Native counterpart to it. If not better, at least an equivalent performant counterpart that exists already. So the community is really going strong with that. And I think that gives you good enough reasons to update. And this one, I believe, is the star. Star could be in conditions apply star, or to me, it is one of the most incredible things to happen if you're developing native apps. The Gradle syncs or the Xcode syncs take a lot of time, even though they might be, making sure that it is faster and faster day by day, but it seriously does not match the hot reloads and the refresh times of React Native and how JavaScript ecosystem runs things, right? So as a developer, you can ship out features very quickly. Your iteration cycles are very quick, so all of these things make me think, why shouldn't you do React Native, right? React Native looks like the way to go, and these all capabilities and give you the reasons to switch to it if you're not already. And for small startups or for small companies and even bigger companies like ours, like Flipkart, right, we have adopted React Native in a big fashion. right? So we'll go into a little bit of detail on what is React Native, try to get everybody on board, and then we'll move into the intricacies. Right, so this simple diagram would help you explain what React Native is. Like the name suggests, React Native is both React and native, two realms coming together, and the two realms are not independent in nature. They are independent, but they also interact with each other. They interact with each other through a bridge, and that bridge is asynchronous, which means that if you have to convey a message from React to native, you need to go via the bridge. And if you want to convey a message from native to React, you go via bridge again. And it's asynchronous, which means you can't predict when that will happen. It's up to the bridge to delegate that as and when it seems wise. Right? And it does that through a message queue. Whatever code you write in React, right? Let's say you write a business logic or you write a view logic or something, it all goes to the bridge, goes to the native through the bridge, and the bridge gives it to the native and says, hey, the user wants to render a view. Hey, the user wants to change the text or something like that, right? And the native responds, and native does things on that. So because the end of the day, everything that's being done is native, the entire flow, native is the one that's creating the elements, native is the one that's drawing the elements, native is the one that's updating the elements. JavaScript is just an abstraction on top, right? So you can replace that native anytime if you want. Today it's Android and iOS, makes me think it could be web as well, right? And all of these things, right, happen through the bridge. And the other capability that exists is that when you write your code in JavaScript, you use Flexbox systems for styling and layouting and all of that. Now, native systems don't understand Flexbox. It's a web-based system, right? So all the style sheets that you write, it goes through the bridge. There is something called as a shadow tree, which gets in touch with Yoga, which is the layouting library that React Native comes bundled with. It converts all the Flexbox thing into things that the native platform understands, and then gives it to native so that the native can apply those styles accordingly, right? So truly JavaScript is just an abstraction, a commonality sort of a thing, an interface sort of a thing that lets you communicate with the native without writing native code, right? And the other amazing capability, which I think is a win-win for React Native, is unlike web views where you're developing your apps in a silo, you don't interact with native at all. You only interact when you're done, or you do things like post messages, right? And post messages are very they're just strings, right? So information can get lost in between. They don't support other than primitive types and whatnot. Native modules, on the other hand, are a capability which let JavaScript talk to the native directly. So what you could do is, let's say native has a storage mechanism, it uses a DB, or it uses some sort of a local storage sort of a mechanism, async storage sort of a mechanism. What JavaScript could do is say, hey native, why don't you give me storage for this system or this key, and it would return back. So you can await on that, the whole cycle you can await on that. Obviously it's async, so you would have some sort of promises that exist, but this capability of talking to native at any point of time in your React Native life cycle gives you so much power, to still write your native code if you want, and then use it on React. So what I also like to address at this point is, there's often a misconception when people think of React Native that they'll hardly have to do any native, right? And it's all React. Fair enough, you can write your business logic in React, but native forms the base of everything that you do. So it's good to understand the native platforms, right? It's good to understand why they are doing what they're doing and how do they operate. So you might have to come into a conclusion and do some native code. I would say that could be the way to go. If you want to use native libraries like cameras or geolocation or things like that, and you have to make some tweaks yourselves, native is the way to go, and JavaScript should just be the caller, or should just be the abstraction on top of it, right? And as most of you might have already figured, because there's a lot of communication that is happening between JavaScript and native through this bridge, and the bridge is asynchronous, there's a very high possibility that if there's too much information that's happening, the bridge could get choked. And you're right about that. Bridge is the bottleneck for React Native. If there's anything that goes wrong in the entire performance life cycle, it's almost always the bridge. The bridge could get choked up. There's only one queue, message queue, that exists. And if you're doing too many things from JavaScript to tell native, and the native is also responding back to the same queue, things could get cluttered in that queue, right? So always be careful of the queue, and which means you should always be careful of what native is doing when you're trying to render React or updating React or things like that. So it's better to be cognizant of the fact that what is native and why it is doing what it is doing, what is native modules and all of that. Right. So let's jump a little deeper into what React Native is. I think we have briefly covered, but React Native modules gives you the capability of invoking some functions, invoking some. You could share some functionality like something like a user manager or a cart manager, or you can is the user logged in and that information was in native. Do you have this in DB? That information was in native. Things like that, right? Or if you want to eventually store something in the DB, things like that, right? Very core capabilities. You want to do network calls through it, you want to do caching through it, you want to do navigation through native. All of that is possible because you can directly talk to the native from your JavaScript one. React Native comes out of the box. It gives you that capability out of the box. The other amazing things which we have not discussed is native UI modules. So this is amazing, right? So when you're building web views or other cross-platform areas, you cannot use something that native has built. There are times when people are building apps that were built in native and then slowly migrating to React Native. What they say is, I'll have to redo my work. I'll have to redo whatever I did in native. That's not true for React Native. Let's say your app was completely native at this point. What you could do is you could export that native component and something that you built in XML or on Android, or something that you built on Xcode, right? Or using SwiftUI or something like that. You could export that to be used as a component in React. So for React, it is just another component like a JSX, right? Just like you render a view or a text, you could render your component, that the code for which is actually written in native. Right now you might think, okay, fine, I can render it statically. What if I want to pass props to it? You can do that. What if I want to take actions on it, like pinch, zoom, click? You can do that. All of those are props at the end of the day. You can pass some custom styling to it. You can do everything that you could possibly do with React elements just by exporting a native element. I think this gives out a lot of capability for somebody who's used to a native build app development to come onto React Native and do the same thing. And on the other side of things, it also gives a lot of capability to people who are building typical JavaScript applications to come on board and build native apps without much struggle whatsoever. So what I think is, I've done a lot of blabbering around these things. I would like to jump into code and show you how React Native looks like and how it works, and then we can delve deeper into what is happening in it. Right? All right. So I have taken the liberty of, I hope the code is visible, the screen is visible. So I have taken the liberty to build a simple app on both Android and iOS. What it does is it has something like a status bar, it has a safe area view. So I would like to introduce these couple of things, right? These couple of things that come out of React Native. You have something like a status bar. Now, status bar looks pretty different on Android and iOS. Some phones might have a notch, some phones might not. Some phones might have a dark content, some might have a light, depending on your capability. You would get all of that in one React element. At the end of the day, all of these things like status bar are native elements. So what is happening right now is, thanks to React Native, when you use status bar and pass a prop like bar style, React Native takes that prop, tells the native element, hey, you should be dark, and it goes up to be dark. There's no way you can render this in a web view, right? You can't do that. There's no way you can do that. But React Native gives you that capability because in the end, it's all native, right? So always keep that in mind with React Native. In the end, it's all native, right? The other thing is like things like safe area view, where you have to worry about notches and where should I render my screen. If it's an iPhone 10, I should keep 40 pixels down or things like that. React Native gives that out of the box, says, okay, this is your safe area. Why don't you render everything inside it? And if you see, things like views, pressables are all abstractions on top of a button on either platforms, or views are something like linear layouts or UI collection view on iOS, right? So, and things like that. So what I've done is built a simple React application which does nothing but random quotes and rendering an image, and similarly same thing that runs on iOS. This simple piece of code just runs simply on both the platforms, and look at how the updation works. Um, and I would like to, think about doing this in native, right? You would have to go ahead and change your code, recompile, do all of that. But out here, developing two platforms is almost like magic.
Right. I believe I lost you guys somewhere here. I'm sorry for the power cut. Bangalore rains. So we were somewhere out here. We were discussing how React Native gives us APIs to do things like status bar, safe area views, and all of that, and how the iteration cycle is so quick, and you could almost always develop two apps at once using a single piece of code, right? What I also want to discuss is how does all of this come together in an app, right? So I would just extend the screen a bit further so that you are able to see the code. If you look at this piece of code, this is the starting point of an application. Index.js is where it all starts. So if you look at this piece of code, app registry.register component, this is what is happening. When you open up a screen, let's say you built an app using React Native in it or something, and it expects that, okay, I've opened up a screen. Within this, I'll open up a React Native page. Now, how does React Native work, right? How do you open up a React Native page inside a native app? It's not supposed to happen that way, right? It doesn't understand JavaScript. So what it does is the platforms try to use JSC. Uh, we discussed in the previous slide as well how JSC could come together. So what JSC does is JSC is capable of running JavaScript. So each screen in the app, let's say a fragment or an activity on Android, or a UI navigation controller or something on iOS, is capable of running JSC. And once it's capable of running JSC, the JSC is now capable of running the bundle, right? So all you have to do is pass the bundle to the JSC in that screen, for that matter, right? So open a screen, give the bundle to the JSC, and it all runs, right? So that's the entirety of thing. Now, how do you get the bundle is up to you. You want to bundle the app? Sorry, you want to bundle the bundle in the APK? Sure, go
Hello.
ahead and do.
Sorry to
Hello.
interrupt you.
Yes.
You're not presenting your screen actually.
Oh, I think I was. I'll just start from. I think we missed a bit of it. So, like we discussed, right, the whole React Native part of things, of how writing this piece of code, which listens to things like status bar or safe area view, can all just work beautifully on both the apps. Right now, how does this all come together? How does native understand that, hey, I have to run JavaScript? So native, when you open a screen in native, right, it could be a fragment, it could be activity, it could be a UI control view, depending on the platform and the choices that you make. What it needs to do is to power JSC, JavaScript core, to be able to run JavaScript. Now, JavaScript core bundles with the React Native library, which you include in your build.gradle on Android, or a pod file on iOS. So once you do that, you come bundled with JSC, right? Your JSC is already there. Your app is capable of running the JSC. So all you have to do is you have to pass your bundle to the JSC for that screen, right? Or for the entire app for that matter, right? So all you have to do is pass the bundle. Now, how you get that bundle is up to you. You could download it through an over-the-air update, which means just before you open that screen, you could download that bundle. Let's say through something like a code push or a CDN, or simply you could bundle it in the APK itself. Ship the app with it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter to you, but the JavaScript bundle is a bit larger in size. When you think of complex apps, it could go to something like a 1 MB or a 2 MB or 2.5 MB. You don't want to clutter the app. Plus the other thing of, you always want the user to download the latest thing. So why bundle it with the app? It's almost like you have a JavaScript capability, but you're not doing it. You're not using it to the full optimum scale. So you're still shipping JavaScript with the app. So best practice would be to go ahead and download from the some service like Code Push, which gives you free capabilities to do that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, when you give a JavaScript bundle, what part of the code does it actually run? Let's say you're running a web application, you provide a root. Let's say you're running a Android application, again, you provide a parent, right? So this is the parent. Index.js is the parent for every React Native application, which says, okay, at this point, you tell what is your root, which is something like an app. And then you say, what name do you register yourself with? I register myself with something like Recro. Fair enough. And register yourself with that name and pass me the parent, right? What will happen is the native when it tries to run, it will look for this very name. It will look for a bundle which is registered against this name. So if it's getting too complex, think of it this way: your bundle needs to have a key value storage. Recro uh, against Recro, you have an entire bundle, and when the native boots up, it says, "Okay, in this bundle, I want to run Recro." It says, "Okay, Recro is here. Why don't you render the entire thing?" Fair enough. You move to the next screen. You could be shipping out another bundle for that screen. It could be Recro 2. It says, "Okay, I'm screen 2. I want to render Recro 2." It says, "Okay, Recro 2. This is the new bundle. Go ahead and render that." So you could build the entire app in one bundle. You could split it into multiple bundles. It's up to you, right? So I would say you could possibly split it out in different bundles and develop single screens every time. That is also one way to do it, right? So I'm assuming that everybody got a structure of what is happening and how it is happening, right, for both Android and iOS. So having gotten a little bit into code, let's discuss on how this thing sort of was magical in nature, right? How this was purely magical in nature, that writing piece of JavaScript could eventually run Android and iOS at the same time. But we didn't get to the web part, right? We didn't get to the web part where we didn't know that the same piece of code could it run on web as well. To your surprise, right, there's something called as React Native for Web, which is being developed by Nicholas Gallagher, who's also an engineer from Facebook. It's not advertised out of Facebook, right? You don't get to see it working out of the box. What you'll have to do is you'll have to do some custom things to make sure the same piece of code sort of runs on web as well. So what we'll try to do is we'll try to integrate this thing to run on web as well. Since the library makes it possible, let's try and do that. So if you look at the piece of code that I wrote, if you're aware of how React Native works, React Native allows you to choose your platform at runtime and also at build time. What I mean by that is, let's say you're running a piece of code and your if condition has to say something like, hey, if it's Android, do something like talk to Google. If it's iOS, do something like talk to Apple, something like that, right? You want to talk to the OEM out there, or this is at runtime. So depending on where you are running, you want to do that, or you could have two very different development, right? You could have two very different features. Let's say you want to build a up gesture or an animation which looks different on Google, which on Android, which looks very different on iOS. React Native gives you the capability of doing things like feature.android.js, feature.ios.js. And when you bundle the app, when you bundle the API, sorry, the JavaScript bundle, the React Native bundle, you provide the platform. So it knows which platform you're bundling it for. If you're bundling it for Android, it picks up the .android.js. It's intelligent that way. When you are bundling for iOS, it picks up the ios.js. It's intelligent that way. So let's say you support two platforms, you should bundle twice, providing the platform, and then ship that specific platform bundle to that specific platform. Give the Android one to Android, give the iOS one to iOS. So things like that. Now, React Native Web is built on similar guidelines. It says you have an index.js that is being listened by both Android and iOS. Why don't I do an index.web.js? And what it can do is, fair enough, I will do index.web.js, and within that I will do something similar, like I will do a register component, and I will also do a run application. For those of you who are web developers, you would know that how we render things using typical React is we use something called as React DOM, which lets you render things on the DOM, right? What you do is, in your HTML, you assign a div and you hook your entire React tree onto that div, right? You do a React DOM.render, you give the entire app, and then you find that element by ID or something and then attach to that. So we do something similar out here for web. What we do is we find an index.html and we say, okay, this is my React root, and this is where I will render my React Native Web counterpart. So what is happening is index.web.js is saying, fair enough, I am registering my component with the name app. Ideally, it should have been something like Recro, right? It doesn't matter. Something like Recro, right? And side by side, what I'm doing is I want you to, push this element onto that ID, which is in the HTML, right? But how is this compiling? I'm still using something like React Native. What you'll have to do is in package.json, you should have some sort of, using the library called as React Native Web, you should install that library and use that. But if you look at my imports, right, I'm not using React Native Web anywhere, right? So for web, what I'm doing is, okay, let's go back and think how Android and iOS work. Android and iOS, you need something like a Metro bundler. You do React Native start on a certain port, it picks up your index.js, the entire app, and runs it on a server, 8081, 8082, whatever port you give. For web, since we don't have Metro support, what we do is we write our own bundler. We write our own config. So we wrote something like Webpack and say, okay, hey, I'll give you an entry path, something like index.web.js. Why don't you output whatever bundle you make starting from index.web and put it to bundle.js? And if you looked at your HTML a little deeply, what I'm doing is I'm rendering that bundle.js in a script, right? So this is how it all stitches together, where your Webpack picks up is a bundler which picks up index.web.js. It it takes up the entire tree from there, takes up, puts it into bundle, puts it into a public directory. The public directory is the bundle.js is already being picked up by something like index.html, and this is what runs. This entire thing is then attached to the React root, which is the div that exists in the HTML, and then the entire application runs. But okay, that's fair. That's fair. But React Native does not come bundled with web. Where does React Native Web happen? What did you do with React Native Web? If you looked at the piece of code in Webpack a bit deeply, what you would understand is this resolve, and this is pure magic, right? What you do is everywhere you see an import for React Native, why don't you change that import while you are bundling to something like React Native for Web, right? So if you are able to stitch the picture, what is happening is React Native Web is nothing but 1:1 copy of things that React Native exports. Just that, like I said, the views and the texts and the style sheet APIs that talk to native, out here it talks to the DOM APIs, the web APIs, right? So you're still writing your code in views and text and style sheets. At the end, what will happen is your app.js, whatever code you wrote from import this from React Native, it will become React Native Web when you're bundling for web. And because React Native Web would already export all of these things, they would all have the same signature and the API, it would just work, right? So if you have to simply say it, things like view on web would be something like a div, something like text, which you wrote in this code somewhere here, would be something like a span, something like a pressable would be something like a button. It's just that you're taking this props and converting it into props that the DOM understands, right? So all of this sort of comes together. Fair enough. How does it run? How does it run? So I'll just give you this, right? Just a second. I think I switched my. Right. This will come up and index.web. Let's say this is there, not making any changes. And index.web is there. Yeah. So if you look at this piece of code now runs on web as well. So whatever change I make in app.js, let's say I make a change here, inspire all of us at Recro for web, right? This would make a change for this would make a change for Android, and it would similarly make a change for web as well. So what you're doing is just by that similar piece of code that you wrote, where you converted your Metro namings, your React Native namespaces to React Native web namespaces through things like Webpack, a Webpack bundler which comes into play in the middle, and using a different entry point like index.web.js, your entire code from that point starts to work, right? So this is pretty interesting, right? What I also wanted to show you guys is that um, we talked about native modules, right? We talked about how you could interact with native. how you could talk to native and say, okay, hey, this is what I wanted to do. Why don't you give me this information? So I went ahead with and used a native module called as UUID generator, which does nothing but it just talks to the native. It could have been just a JavaScript implementation, but what it does is it talks to native and says, hey, on so I'll actually show you the change that will make it better. So yeah, if you look at this piece of code, what I'm doing is instead of the button inspire all of us, what I'm also saying is there's a generate UUID button. Now, if you click at this, there's a UUID that's getting generated on Android as well as iOS. Now, how this is getting done, if you look at this piece of code, what you could do out here is you could, let me open this up. Yeah, if you look at this piece of code, index.js is exporting something like this, get random UUID, and it's talking to native modules dot rnuuid generator and then saying get me the random UID and I will resolve that promise, right? So this is JavaScript code, but this is the Android piece of code that that'll give you a sense of things that what I'm doing is I'm doing a UUID package from Java, taking it to string and then invoking with that callback, right? So this is the Java piece of code. Similarly, there's an iOS piece of code that's written that lets you do all of this, right? But now if I do a similar thing for web, what does your guess look like? My guess is this would break, right? Why? Because there is nothing like native modules that exist on web. And the guess is, let me just the guess is sort of right. Why? Because if you go out here and you click on this, you would see that the native modules is undefined. Why? Because native modules does not exist on React Native for web, right? But that means that whatever we have been talking up until now of how React Native is truly cross-platform is not possible. You would have simple static things working on, web. You would have things working on Android and iOS, but you wouldn't have things working on web, right? Specifically to the native modules and the native modules part. But I would like you to think, right? Think about how when you're building for Android and iOS, what you do is you write your native modules, let's say a third-party native module like UUID generator or things like that. You register yourself in the application, which means that before rendering a JavaScript in a JSC, that screen is also doing one extra thing. It is taking that native module, registering it in a global registry so that JavaScript can, for JavaScript, it is available, right? So it is happening at a step before JavaScript runs. Before JSC runs the JavaScript, I take some time, build my all native UI modules, put it in the global namespace, and then I run my JavaScript so that JavaScript can get references to native modules. What if by hacking simple JavaScript, we do a similar thing, right? We might have a way out, right? So what if you do something like this before anything starts up, which means you pick up React Native, whatever is the React Native, you write your own implementation of something like a UUID generator in JavaScript, and you define a property on native modules, the global native modules, with whatever the name is and the value of that, and then see if it works, right? So let's try and do the same thing. I took the liberty of writing this down in something called as React package, and in index.web, what I'll do is the first thing I'll do is use import React package, and that React package basically just defines the property of native modules, and then the entire app starts, right? So let's say if I do this now, what is happening now? I have an RNUUID generator, right? And I could go into this, and this is the piece of code that I wrote, right? It's inside my web recro, all of that, right? And I have wrote my own implementation of how a UUID is generated, it's copied from Stack Overflow or something, right? And then return as a callback. So this piece of code, this simple piece of code is now running on all three platforms. Right, this simple piece of code. So I would like you to think that this is exactly how even Android and iOS work. It's just that this part of thing, the one that we wrote of defining property on native modules, picking up a native module's name, and then putting the value so that everybody can access that, is one, the implementation is native, which means it's there in Java or Objective-C. It's coming out of a native module, it's coming out of an NPM package, or you are writing it on. That is possible. The other thing is this is being done by React Native itself. It's out of the box capability. It gives you something like a React package. It lets you create a list of native modules, attach whatever native modules you want, so that when the JavaScript loads up, you can get each of them, right? Since React Native Web does not give us that capability, we do that ourselves using this piece of code, right? But this piece of code is not something that you should ship your code with. This is still experimental in nature, and you should still try to make sure that you follow the industry standards and whatnot. Try to use as much code possible between three platforms. But this is just an idea to get you started to think how native modules could also work on web, right? So just to be very clear, right, when you write your code in React Native, you write your code in things like view text, view text, view text, right, or style sheet or status bar or safe area view. On Android, they form native elements like linear layout, text views. On iOS, they form UI collection views, UI text view. On web, because of React Native Web, you get things like divs and spans and whatnot. And that's just not what it's limited to. It goes ahead and does things on Mac, Windows, tvOS, and whatnot, all because view text by themselves have no meaning. They derive their meaning depending on the platform they run on, the native that they run on, right? So React by itself has no meaning in React Native. Views and text have zero you know meaning or derivations or definitions. They're just an abstraction over what is written in the native code, and they try to render that just by following the same API structure, right? So what does the future look like for something like React Native and React Native for web? So one of the things is the code that I showed today of how to experimentally integrate native modules on React Native Web. I have been in touch with Nicholas Callaway to try to integrate native modules for web as well, so that we can truly say that yes, React Native is cross-platform, and that sort of bridge breaks away of web. There is no native modules, and Android and iOS there is some bit of native modules. The other thing which would be of interest to people who are in the React Native community would be things like auto linking, right? How something like UUID generator for me became very easy. I just had to install it and then run one script, one React Native script. It picks up the native modules from that package and puts it in the React package. It basically, whatever we defined property for JavaScript, it does that automatically. Auto linking. Earlier, you had to do npm link, React Native link for every package. Now it's auto link. The moment you start the app again, it searches for all packages, links it so that JavaScript world can access it. So this is something that we want for web as well, wherein you download a package, npm install a package. If it has a web native module, it gets auto linked, and then on web you just have to continue writing it. You don't have to do something like a React package at the top of your index.web.js and write all of that. The other thing is community for React Native Web. How would the community picture? How would, not just like you have support for almost everything on Android and iOS on React Native, a similar community should exist on web as well. To be giving out all those capabilities on web. And if you've worked around and checked out how React Native architecture is being shaped up, like I told earlier, the bridge is async in nature, and bridge is the bottleneck. They're trying to solve that through JSI and Fabric, which means that you could synchronously talk to the bridge, the native module or the native API, and do things similar to how web does it. So traditional web, not React Native Web, how web does it, wherein you could do document.get element by ID, you could get the element on the DOM synchronously. You don't have to wait to get the reference of it asynchronously. So things like that are happening. We would want similar things to happen in React Native Web as well, where we, instead of just booting up native modules at the start of the app, let's say your app has 30 native modules, but it's only going to use 2. You still have to, package all of them upfront and then maybe use only 2 in the screen. You don't have a capability of lazy loading them. You have that with the new architecture. So you would want to have that in React Native Web, and be able to utilize that structure. Other than that, I think React Native as a whole, um, what I would like to conclude with is React Native is a really powerful uh, tool, really powerful framework out there to let you develop native apps using for Android and iOS as well as web. Right, the community is getting stronger each day. You could do platform level checks. You could use platform level APIs using React Native modules. You could integrate a component using React Native UI modules. You could um, render your own bundles and stuff. So, I mean that's what that's the thing that I would like to end the talk with. Thank you for listening. I'm not sure how much of it was relevant to how many of you, but I think that all of you got some sense out of it and would be able to suggest me something to do better. The questions around this would be really helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we can go to the questions tab where we can address the questions. So
Yeah,
I think there is only one question as of now, and we can mark
right,
it as answered once you answer it.
right. I would just reread it for everybody. In real life examples, there are many third-party libraries like React Navigation. How does that work out with React Native Web? So the way I like to answer this question is, if you think about it, React Native is not opinionated on routing or navigation as a whole. You still have to use third-party libraries like React Navigation, right? So React Native does not give you core components for navigation. Use a third party. So similarly, on React Native Web, you could integrate with any router you want, right? So you could integrate with React router. At the end, what you'll have to do is you would just have to point the route to app registry. That's it. So your entire application is pointing to that route. That route internally is rendering a React router, which is rendering another component, right? So that does not take away. Everywhere you have to use something like a React router because it doesn't work on Android and iOS. You would have to do things like .web.js or do a platform.os check or something similar. But just to give you an example, that is exactly how we do it at Flipkart. We let the navigation on Android and iOS be handled by native layers. Android and iOS, you know, platforms handle navigation by themselves. On web, we handle it using React router. So that's entirely possible. Uh, I mean, you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, do you have any other questions? Like, else we can wrap this up, and we'll see you in the next talk.
You can always reach out to me on Twitter or something, and then uh,
So he's saying if we have an existing app in React Native, we have
right,
another.
right. So how I like to think of this is when you have an existing app in React Native, you should approach it screen by screen and not try to solve it all at once. The major struggle I feel you would have to migrate an existing app in React Native to a React Native web is to solve for native modules. Because if you're just rendering things, images, views, text, they would just work out of the box, right? You would want to do custom implementations for your native modules, just like how I wrote out here. You would have, if let's say you wrote uh, a native UI module, something like a fast image or vector icons or things like that, you would have to think of that, write web complementary things yourselves because there's nothing in the community out there. So, you would have to do all of that. But I would like to, tell you that you should not approach the entire app at once. You should try to approach it screen by screen. Can I take this screen out? Can I take this route? Because web is a different beast when it compared to Android and iOS. Web, every page is individually accessible using a link, a URL, right? So you would have to keep that in mind. On apps, you don't have to keep that in mind. On apps, you could render any screen. There's no way to reach that screen if you don't reach the home page. That's just the way it is, right? But with this, that's possible. So always think of one screen at a time and then move ahead and move the entire app like that. Okay. So is there any way we can know when Bridge is getting choked with events? That is exactly a very good question. So there is something called as a message queue, right? So message queue is the centric bridge between React Native and React and Native, which both the users are communicating with using that bridge. So you could do is search for something called as message queue spies out of React Native. You just have to import that in React and turn the spy feature on both Native and React. Then what will happen is all of your console.logs, all of your things for the message queue or all the events that are going, you can actually see that, right? So everything that is passing through the bridge, you can actually see that in your consoles. And then you can figure out, probably use dates or timers to see how much of the events are flowing in, right? The other way to do this is if your bridge is choking, right? Your UI thread is not impacted. Your JavaScript thread is not impacted, but there is a possibility that your other threads are getting choked up, right? So I would suggest that you profile your app, your JavaScript thread is fine, but it could be possible that you're sending too much information to native, and it's taking a lot of time in, let's say, a native module thread or a native UI module thread or the UI thread to render things. So do that, profile your app, and then that would give you a better sense of what is happening. But if you really want to see what exactly is going order by order into the message queue, you should turn that spy feature on. Okay. I'll just take that one first. We can design React Native by Expo React Native and React Native CLI. Which one is more good to use professionally? Okay, that entirely depends on your use case. I prefer to use React Native CLI. It's basically because I know how to start off my application from scratch. But let's say you don't and you are building up something new, I would suggest go with Expo because it comes opinionated, right? It comes with predefined navigation libraries, predefined image libraries, predefined uh, storage libraries, everything. So you could just use that and get your work done without having to know, oh, should I use React navigation, or should I use router, or should I use this? So you wouldn't be answering that question in your head, right? So it's just a simple path you can go, and at any point of time you feel confident, eject your app, and then go about it. But let's say if you know your work way around and you don't want to restrict to one set of choices, I would say start with React Native CLI, try out things differently, build from scratch, and all of that. So it entirely depends. But if you are a professional who knows what you're doing, React Native CLI would be the way to go. Right. How do we separate business logic from UI layer in RN? So this is similar to how you would do it in React as well, right? So the only thing that adds up in React Native is the native layer as well. Right. It's at the end of the day, if you're trying to separate business logic from UI layer in the JavaScript world, you would want to use something like a data management storage technique like a Redux or a Flux or a Mobex or something, right? All of that. But if you are sharing things between native, which you wouldn't be doing in React, then I would say React Native is a different beast. You would have to think of native modules and all of that. But I think what you mean from a UI layer and business logic is you mean purely React. You could very well integrate things like Redux or Mobex or Xstate or all of the libraries out there. They come with support for React Native as well. So you could very well use that. Where can I find? I hope that answers. By the way. How can I find the render cost of a particular component? Okay, this is interesting. So when so there are profilers that React Native comes with uh, before, from what I think, before version 61 or 62, you didn't have this support. So you would have to rely on the emulator performance monitor, perf monitor, and that would give you threads, that would give you what is happening, that would give you FPS, and that is how you would figure out, or you would do something like a console.log or stuff like that, or at least that's how I used to do it. Now you have things like Flipper. So Flipper is a tool that React Native team built, which lets you connect to an emulator. It could be an Android, it could be an iOS emulator, and tell you what is happening. Just like React DevTools, right? React Performance DevTools, React Profiler, React Component Profiler. This is similar for React Native. You can tell how many times they are component render, what are the props, what is everything. So you could actually do that. The other thing is when you're doing React Native, there's a thing called reload and there is a thing called reload debug remotely. So when you reload, it loads it in Chrome's runtime or whatever is a browser. So there also you could do a lot. Okay, this Got it. So you are writing your web app in views and tech views and spans and h1s and sections and footers and mains and all of the DOM elements, right? Using React Native Web gives you one edge to be able to use that code for apps as well. If you have that use case, use it. If you're just rendering only web, then you're already in the sweet spot. The use case of using React Native Web, I believe, only applies if you are used to that React Native architecture, React Native syntaxes, React Native semantic elements, and you want to render them on all three platforms. If you're choosing just web, then I would say stick to React. If you're using all three or even two, stick to React Native. So that's the way to judge which one to pick. I heard that React Native is going to scrap bridge and bring some interface between native and JS. So Um, so these changes are going on incrementally. They want to make sure, like how React 17 was pushed and how React 16 was pushed. They don't want to break anything while introducing these new changes. So they want it to be backward compatible. So they're incrementally pushing those changes. I would suggest look at there's this developer Parshuram. He talked about in a couple of videos on YouTube. He's the one who's spearheading this entire thing. But in this new interface, like I talked about the JSI fabric thing towards the end, in the future, that is exactly what is happening. They are trying to scrap the bridge, not really scrap the bridge, but they are solving it through linking. So the entire native module will be synchronously accessible. They're probably solving through the binding, C++ binding or something, where the entire thing which you write on native is accessible on React immediately without having to wait for a bridge or something like that. So these changes will go incrementally, but I think even Facebook team is not sure on when that would be done completely. Right. So not sure. I mean, you'll have to keep checking React Native. They incrementally keep pushing these changes. I am new to React Native and started with plain JavaScript, but using TypeScript. Okay. Okay. I would like to know your opinion on using strongly typed TypeScript over plain JavaScript. Okay. So I might be a little biased here. I am a pure TypeScript fan. I love the way it brings out static typing and static checks at build time, and it almost always gives you the sense of safety in your mind where things will break at build time and not break at runtime. But for somebody who's catching up, I can understand that it would be a little too much to do from the start. But if you can use that, I would suggest use that as much as possible. That gives you a sense of confidence, and try to use a lot of native capabilities which come out of TypeScript, like nullish colons or cosines. I think I keep forgetting the name. So, so all of these things, they are pretty handy, and use the right interfaces, use the right types, use if you're using React or Redux, use add types. And if you are the one to publish a library, always publish with your types so that somebody else can use. So I think that community is going strong. You should definitely stick to TypeScript. The initial learning curve is huge, but it's good enough. Is RN Web mature enough? Do we have all the support for all existing RN components or APIs? So like I said, the major one that's missing is native modules and native UI modules. Almost everything else, if it exists on web, it is there. So one example that I would like to give you is something like Backhandler, right? So Android and iOS, I'm not sure, I'm an Android user, where you click back, it lets you stop going back, show a model, then move ahead, right? Or maybe not go ahead. That is it. You press no, you don't go ahead. Browser, on the other hand, does not give that API or something that I know of, right? What happens is you get a callback once the back has happened, right? So you can't implement a back handler one is to an API for React Native Web until the browser gives you that API, right? So that makes it a little different because these platforms are inherently different. But other than that, almost other than native modules, native UI modules, and something like this, which is very typical to an app, you would get almost all capabilities on RN Web. You should actually check that out. It's almost 20,000 stars on GitHub, and people are using it. People at Twitter, people at Expo, people at Flipkart, people at Myntra, Instagram. They're all using React Native Web. So uh, our PWA, Twitter Lite as a PWA, is being built on top of React Native Web. So I would say it's stable enough, but again, it depends on the use case that you are trying to solve. How can I start a UI component in native, for example, in Xcode and use that in React Native? It's possible. It is definitely possible. So if you go and check something like native UI modules, we do that in our Flipkart apps where we built a lot of native components. We reuse them in React Native. There's a way to export, like there's a way to export native modules. There is a way to export native UI modules as well, native components. So let's say you wrote an animation in native, or you wrote a scroll view in native, or you use some library in native. You could export that, and you could use it in native. You could use it in React just like any other element. You use view from React Native. You could use require native component, that guy from React Native. So that's entirely possible. You should actually leverage that. It will give you a sense of achievement that you're using code between these two technologies. That's insane. Um, how to start with reactive native? Um, I'm I'm sorry, I haven't heard of this. If you
No, he's
can,
I think he's asking about React Native only. Like
okay,
how to start
okay,
about React Native. Like
all right. So React Native, how to start? I would say the docs are pretty good in nature, but like I said, if you are not the person who would like to go through docs, then Expo is the way to go. Go to Expo, try out a few things. You would initially, get a sense of what is happening, and then you can move on and do something about it. React Expo, you don't even need to start with something like a Android Studio or an Xcode. You could start with just your browser and your phone, so you don't need anything set up. Just the Expo app on your phone and the browser is all you need. So I think that's the way to go if you're starting that. Expo and their own docs, and check out React Native community. That's like great if you want to see what is coming up in the next 3 months or 4 months, like JSI or Fabric. I think that should give you some head start. I hope that answers.
yeah, I think like we have reached the end of the session, and there are no more questions out there. So yeah, I'd like to thank you, Muskin, and to all the attendees for taking out time on a Saturday and attending these like very knowledgeable session. And yeah, I've already I think shared all the links. So do give us a feedback. We have a feedback link if you uh, want to give any feedback regarding the session. You think anything is missing or anything was great, please write on the feedback link. Also, you can join us like our WhatsApp groups where we post about like what all new sessions are coming up and different communities are out there. Also, we have a YouTube channel where you can see all the previous talks of all the previous you can say all the previous speakers. And yeah, we have also shared our LinkedIn profiles for the speaker and me. You can follow us, ask any questions if you have any, and connect us on LinkedIn. And yeah, thanks for attending, and thanks Muskin again for giving us a great session uh, on React Native.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed it and there's something that they can learn from it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
thanks guys. So we'll be like signing it off now, and thanks for attending.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.